Call the Wichita Board of Education meeting in order. Thank you for joining us tonight. Would you please join with me a moment of silence? Thank you. The Wichita Public Schools will be the premier district of choice and inspire each student and staff member to thrive and become future ready within the greater community. All board members are in attendance. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a couple of quick announcements. In case of severe weather warning, we do have a emergency shelter location in place, and our director of safety will let us know if we need to suspend the meeting, and we will follow Sean into that safe room. The other quick announcement is a special thank you to Joseph and Akiko tonight. They are sitting in for our regular board clerk, and we appreciate their extra efforts tonight. And with that, Joseph, first item, please.
First item under Student Success, Superintendent's Student Advisory Committee.
Wendy, do we go ahead and introduce the next good items then?
Thank you. I can address the Super SAC item as well as our two good news items. For our viewers at home, you may or may not know as you watch that we're in a tornado watch right.
Okay, we'll start over.
Of all people to forget to push the button. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so let's try this again. President Reeser, members of the board, Superintendent Bielefeld. For viewers that are watching at home, right now we're in a tornado watch. And out of an abundance of caution, we made the decision earlier today that the students that you would normally have here filling the room with their parents and principals and advisors, we made the difficult decision to allow them to remain at home or in a sheltered location and not run any risk of bringing people out in bad weather. So we regret not having their smiling faces here, but we do intend to honor them, both the scholarship and CTE certification students, as well as the middle school VEX robotics teams. And we've got a plan B so that we can acknowledge all of them by name, and then we will continue to find opportunities through the spring to celebrate them. It's hard to believe that 1 week from today, you all will be standing at the very first of our commencement ceremonies. So we don't have much left of the year, but we do have time. We always have time to celebrate student success. So without further ado, Dr. Hatfield will come forward to share both the class of 2024 scholarship recipients as well as our VEX robotics champions.
Thank you and welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm not sure you guys got the good end of this. You went from just a little bit of me to a whole lot of me right at the beginning of this meeting. So I'll just start off by apologizing for all of that. Unbelievably, as Wendy mentioned, graduation season is here. And honestly, the weather is one of the big key indicators it's a graduation season, because we got to have a plan in place at graduation for these weather events as well. But we are happy to recognize several of our soon-to-be graduates for their hard work during their high school careers that has prepared them to be college or career ready. The students that we're going to honor this evening have earned either significant scholarship opportunities to further their education in a traditional college route, or industry credentials to jumpstart their career. The schools ultimately selected the students that will be brought forward tonight. All schools were told they could bring up to 4 students, with the idea that 2 would represent scholarship and 2 would represent industry recognized credentials. One of my favorite things in reviewing what the principal sent this afternoon to tell you is that there are a lot of kids that are actually in both buckets. They're both in the scholarship bucket and the industry credential bucket, so be listening for that as we go through the student names this evening. Data regarding the industry-recognized credentials was provided by the Office of College and Career Readiness based on credentials awarded through courses taught within 259. Since we don't have access to the data from all of the colleges, we can only go based off of the data of the courses that we teach, but there are students that earn credentials in courses outside of 259 that aren't represented necessarily in this data this evening. So without further ado, we're gonna go to our students that we're recognizing this evening. So first is Chester Lewis Academic Learning Center, also known as Wichita Alternative, but for us, the CHET. Adam Ambrose earned a CATIA machining certification while attending high school and will be attending the University of Kansas to study engineering next fall. Haley Kaplan is being recognized for earning certifications in both EKG and phlebotomy. She plans to complete her LPN through WSU Tech and then transfer to Wichita State University to finish her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. Jalen Harris is a Butler Community College scholarship recipient and plans to attend Butler next August. Jose Luis Perez is being recognized as a scholarship recipient, and his future plans include attending Old Town Barber College. Those are our 4 from Chester Lewis Academic Learning Center. Our East High Blue Aces. It is funny, so the principals and the CCCs sent all this information so you can hear their different voices as we go through the reading of them because they're all in a little bit different style, which I think is kind of fun. So, Alex Wong boasts 4 certifications, including Serve Safe and a District Food Handler's Card. His dedication to his craft is evident in his completion of both culinary and marketing CTE pathways. Not only has he earned accolades like the CTE Pathway Award for Restaurant and Event Management, but he has also excelled in competitions, placing 2nd in the ProStart Culinary Competition. He is the recipient of the Feast Scholarship and the Student Ambassador Leadership Scholarship. Alex's next stop is the Culinary Institute of America. Dallas Stoker prepares to graduate with 4 valuable certifications, including OSHA 10 and NCCER Core Curriculum for Construction, as well as a Safe Serve Manager certification for culinary expertise. He will attend WSU Tech to pursue his next certification in welding. Lamaje Broadus secured one of only 6 coveted NROTC military officer scholarships for the OK City region, a testament to his exceptional academic prowess and physical fitness. As president of the East High Kappa League chapter, he demonstrated exemplary leadership, inspiring and empowering his peers to excel. His dedication to both academic excellence and community service earned him the esteemed East High Student Ambassador Leadership Scholarship. Now he sets his sights on Morehouse College, a distinguished historic black college or university where he will pursue a degree in kinesiology. Vivian Chow has been in our AVID program since 6th grade. Her involvement in organizations like the National Honor Society, Eco Club, Ensemble Club, Student Ambassador Program, and Culinary Club showcase her diverse interests and her desire to make a meaningful impact in various spheres. Vivian is the recipient of the prestigious Fran Jabara Scholarship for Junior Achievement and the Full Ride Rudd Scholarship generously provided by an esteemed East High graduate, Leslie Rudd. Now, as she embarks on her next chapter at Wichita State, she will be pursuing a degree in business. Next is our Education Imagine graduates and honorees. Juliana Reed Asher came to Education Imagine Academy during her junior year. CTE pathways are difficult to complete for virtual students because they must be completed outside of high school credits. Because earning a certification in high school was important to her, Juliana completed high school credits and CNA credits simultaneously. Juliana has been interested in the medical field and felt this certification was a good fit to start her career path. She worked with Miss Kim, her school counselor, to find a way to complete this pathway. Juliana is already utilizing her certification and will continue as she plans to continue her education at Hutchinson Community College, majoring in radiography and then bridging to Friends University to complete the bachelor's program. Liliana Bustos completed the last year of her CNA outside of high school work at Education Imagine Academy. Liliana came to EIA after attending a traditional high school for 3 years. She started her CNA certification her junior year and was able to complete it this year at EIA via the Future Ready Center. Mason Rhodes. After 4 years of attending Education Imagine Academy, Mason will graduate this May with a $10,000 scholarship to Wichita State University to be a member of their esports team. Mason has been extremely involved at EIA as a Super SAC representative for 2 years, an esports team member for 4 years, and team captain throughout those years. Mason is graduating in the top 3 of his high school class and is looking forward to extending his participation in esports as he earns his college degree in business. Next is Wichita Heights High School. Adriana Potts received 5 certifications from WSU Tech during her time at Heights. Currently, she works as a CNA at the Catholic Care Center and will attend Wichita State University majoring in nursing this fall. McKenna Doloff has received 4 certifications from WSU Tech during her time at Heights. McKenna plans to work as a CNA while putting herself through esthetician school this fall. Maha Al-Maliki received 4 full-ride scholarship offers totaling $418,310. She will be attending University of Southern California, majoring in political science with a pre-professional emphasis in medicine. Timothy T.J. Williams received 9 full-ride scholarship offers totaling $1.48 million. TJ will be attending Wichita State University, where he will continue his basketball career and major in business. I do want to, some of them have totals for scholarships and some of them don't. I do want to put out there that the FAFSA has presented some challenges this year for our folks, and so those are scholarships through now, but the scholarships are arriving much later in the season than they usually are, so we actually expect the scholarship totals to rise pretty substantially throughout the rest of the spring and early summer, just because all the universities are delivering their scholarship packages later than usual because some FAFSA hiccups. Next is North High. Daniel Charis attended North for 4 years. He has a 3.86 GPA and earned 20 credentials while at North High. He will be attending WSU Tech to earn his HVAC license and certification. Josue Navarrete attended North for 4 years. He has a 3.69 GPA and earned 22 credentials while at North High. He will be attending Butler and for now is majoring in general studies. Adam Bosworth attended North for 4 years. He has a 4.0 GPA. He will be attending WSU to double major in art and psychology. Adam was a Rudd Scholarship winner and has received over $2.8 million in scholarship offers. Alexa Ornalis attended North High for 4 years. Alexa has a 4.0 GPA and will attend Newman University to double major in biomedical science and psychology. Alexa was a Gates winner with over $300,000 in scholarship offers. Next is Northeast Magnet High School. Israel Torres Ayala has completed 3 technical certificates: aviation maintenance airframe, and aviation maintenance power plant. Israel will be graduating from WSU Tech this May. In fact, he graduated last weekend, so he got his WSU Tech degree before he got his high school diploma, as well as Northeast Magnet with an Associate of Science in Aviation Maintenance Technology, and earned a total of 92 credit hours. Nancy DeLora has completed 2 technical certificates: manual machining and CNC operator. Nancy will be graduating from WSU Tech this May, as well as Northeast Magnet, with an Associate of Science in Machining Technology, a total of 65 credit hours. Nancy is currently working part-time at NIAR in CATIA modeling. She plans to move to that position full-time after graduation. Isabella Jeans plans to attend the Minneapolis College of Art and Design to study animation. Isabella has a total of $586,000 in academic and fine arts scholarship offers. Jalen Humphrey plans to attend Hutchinson Community College to study radiologic technology and play football. Jalen has a total of $388,000 in academic and athletic scholarship offers. Next is Northwest High School. And Esti Perez Lopez has completed 2 technical certificates, both in the health arena, WSU Tech Home Health Aide and Certified Nursing Assistant, CNA. Yanitzi plans to attend Newman University, where she will be majoring in nursing. Sincere Thompson, a proud member of our early college academy, has received a full ride to play football at Missouri Western State University, where he plans to major in pre-physical therapy. In total, Sincere was offered more than $500,000 in scholarship money. Elijah Geegan also received multiple scholarships, including the WSU Presidential Merit Scholarship, the National Honor Society Scholarship, and the Grizzly Pride Scholarship. In addition, Elijah was a finalist for both the WSU DSI Scholarship and the Mike and Mary James Scholarship. Elijah plans to attend WSU in the fall, where he will major in biology with plans to attend medical school after graduating from Wichita State. Jack Rue received multiple scholarships, including the WSU Morrison Merit Scholarship, the WSU Honors Merit Scholarship, and the Koch Industry Scholars Program Scholarship. Jack plans to attend Wichita State, where he will major in computer and electrical engineering. Next is South High School. Raimundo Ortiz earned the most industry credentials at South High through our Ford Motor Company program with 13 certificates. He is currently employed as an auto technician with Mel Hamilton and will be attending WSU Tech next year to study welding. Sky Singley has also earned 9 Ford Motor Company certifications and her NIMS, National Incident Management System certification through LPPS, making 10 total. She is a completer in 2 separate programs with national recognized certifications in both. Sky will be going to Wichita State University to study criminal justice. Isaias Whitaker earned over $1.6 million in scholarship offers, including one of 2 students from Kansas to be honored by the National Horatio Alger Association, and one of 100 students selected nationwide for Leadership Enterprise for a Diverse America at Princeton University. Isaias will be going to Princeton University in the fall to major in mechanical engineering. Kaylin Kirk earned over $220,000 in scholarship offers, and with Isaias, who I just said, is the other student from Kansas honored with the National Horatio Alger Scholarship. Kaylin is going to Friends University to major in theater while also serving in the U.S. Army Reserves. Next is Southeast High School. Ethan Sibuhang earned a total of 12 CTE credentials while at Southeast. Ethan plans on attending WSU to major in engineering. Jesse Robidoux earned CTE credentials in aviation maintenance airframe and aviation maintenance general. He's not sure what next year is going to bring yet, though. Adriana Lagares has earned a total of $230,655 in scholarships. She plans to attend Illinois Wesleyan University to double major in marketing and English. Vatetis Coleman earned a total of $155,000 in scholarships. Vatetis plans to attend WSU as a Rudd Scholar recipient. Upon completion of his A&P mechanic certification, he plans to study aerospace engineering in the fall. Town East Learning Center. Andrea Perez Garcia earned her CNA certification while still attending high school and has already secured a job prior to graduation and is currently working in that industry. Jonathan Jones is being recognized for earning his OSHA 10 certification while attending high school. Leslie Avitia will be attending Butler Community College in the fall of 2024 and is being recognized for earning her Butler Choir Scholarship. Liliana Vasquez is a Danforth Scholarship recipient, and although she is currently decided on her future college, she does plan to study journalism. And last but not least, West High School. Tania Sanchez Leal has completed the Patient Care Tech certifications at WSU Tech. She is certified nursing assistant, home health aide, EKG, and phlebotomy. Tania plans to attend WSU in the fall. Yasiri Bustos Ibarra completed the Patient Care Tech certifications at WSU Tech and is certified in Nursing Assistant, Home Health Aide, EKG, and phlebotomy. Yasiri is also attending WSU in the fall. Isaac Duran Gajan is the KHEDF winner, West High Alumni Award winner, and Fabric of Society scholarships. He is still deciding whether he will go to Friends or WSU in the fall. Cameron Wade was the winner of the Give Back Scholarship, which is a full tuition opportunity, and plans to use that opportunity at WSU in the fall. Obviously much cooler if they're here than if it's just me, but I hope you heard, as you listened, all of the kids that had crossover between the scholarship and the certifications, that you don't have to be college or career ready, you can be college and career ready. And if we're ready, I'm just gonna stay up here and launch into VEX Robotics, so just go from one thing to the next. We're also going to honor our middle school VEX Robotics competition kids this evening. Middle school teams competed at the Kansas State VEX Robotics Tournament on Friday, March 8th. That was at Brooks Center for STEM and Arts. A record 25 WPS middle school teams competed at the Kansas State VEX Robotics Tournament, and 8 of those teams qualified to attend the VEX World Championships in Dallas, Texas, just a few days ago. April 28th through the 30th. And we know what their results are. So we're going to honor those kids and their teams in just a moment. One more. Well, I have their names right here. For Allison Traditional Magnet Middle School, there were 2 teams that qualified. Brianna Hupak, Caleb Geegan, Dwayne Aglano, and Jace Headley made up the Allison Aces team. Allison Aces won the Kansas State Judges Award. There they are. The Allison 10K team was Ethan Heck, Court Powell, Lucas Garcia Charles, and Nate Carter. They were the Kansas State champion and also won an Excellence Award. Both teams produced some of the most complex robotics ever built at Allison, even adding pneumatics to their designs. Their coach, Steve Smith, is very proud of what they achieved this year. Our next team that qualified to participate in nationals is from Brooks Magnet Middle School with their coach, Mark Smith. The students are Daniel Franco, Joshua Buckley, Mark January, and Max McClevis. These students were Kansas State Skills Champions with a score of 211 points. Our next school is CMA that had 2 teams qualify. Team 18C consisted of Landon Cherico, Riley Freed, and Braden Williams. They ranked 5th at the Kansas State tournament based on skills rankings. And at the VEX World Championships finished with a 3-7 record in the technology division at Worlds. Amazing teamwork and accomplishments this season. 2/3 of this team didn't start in robotics until this semester. Team 19D consisted of Andrew Plant, Topher Bauman, Landon Pham, and Patrick Johnson. They ranked 4th at the Kansas State tournament based on skills ranking. They finished the VEX World with an 8-2 record, ranked 18th out of the 82 teams in the engineering division at Worlds. They are the first middle school team in the history of our district to win more than 6 matches at VEX Worlds, and the first team to make it through the Alliance section and into the round of 16. In fact, their 8 wins at VEX Worlds is the most of any middle school in the state of Kansas in history. Next is Meade Middle School, which had 2 teams qualify. Team 2601A consisted of Jaden Otero, Jaden Parker, Alexis Villapando, and An Lee. Team 2601B consisted of Gavin Reese, Rigo de la Cruz, Alexander Limones, and Michael Aquino. Both teams were Kansas State tournament finalists. Last but not least, our final team that made it to Worlds was Wilbur Middle School, Team 2036A, consisting of Camden Sotart, Brecken Dexter, and Noah Graces. Wilbur's team was also a Kansas State tournament champion and went undefeated in the qualification matches at the state event. At Vex Worlds, Wilbur competed with the best and finished 5-5 in the math division, which ended up producing the world champion. This experience was unforgettable and will push these students to continue in competitive robotics and engineering. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Lauren. You did a great job there, especially with pronunciation of all the names. That was a really good job. Yeah, and they did we appreciate that presentation, and we also congratulate our scholarship winners, and very proud of them, and a special recognition to our high school counselors who have had to struggle with the hiccups with FAFSA. And we know they did some extra duties there as well, so we appreciate them as well. Any other comments about the public, about the good news section? And we will be
Yes.
raising our hand and,
Okay.
yeah. Go ahead, Melody.
Okay. Is this yes, it's mic'd. So all I wanted to say, and I'm hoping that some of the students are watching, was that I am so pleased that so many of the students, and particularly the students that were awarded so many grants and scholarships, chose to stay here and go to either Friends or Wichita State or Butler Community College. I think that says a lot about this class of students. And I hope to continue to see that, because that's exactly what our city needs, is for all this brain power and this artistic excellence to stay right here, to go to school and to succeed and to stay right here. So thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Any other comments? Okay, Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, public communications.
We do have a Teresa Kelly signed up to speak. See if she braved the weather. I do not see her. She is more than welcome. Hopefully she'll get this news that we invite her back to the next meeting, and we would love to hear her public comments. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item under education, secondary schools academic progress update.
Kelly, I'll let you introduce the topic, and I see Lauren's, boy, you're going to be busy tonight.
It's the Lauren Show. Well, thank you, everybody. Lauren and team, who didn't make it tonight, but Lauren and team put together an update for everybody about some of our student outcomes for secondary schools in particular. So some of this will cross over into strategic plans. Some of it you will see us laying a foundation for what's to come in the future, and some of it's just a recap of what has gone on this year. So Lauren, take it away.
Absolutely. So I was originally going to have some teammates tonight, and I said y'all should stay home. So some of them are texting me right now. So I'm sure if I say something wrong, they'll correct me in the middle so I can say it correctly. Like Kelly said, we just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on where we've been focusing for secondary schools for the last year or so, and then how that focus can meld together with the new Future Ready strategic plan so that we don't have to throw everything away, but we can build on the groundwork that's already been established of what we've been working on for the last couple of years. We plan on doing 3 things tonight, and they're 3 different colors, and it's 3 different colors for a reason. 1, because they're our brand colors, but 2, because they mean something. So if it has a navy, that navy header, we're going to talk about where we've been, what we've been focusing on. If it has a red header on it, we're going to talk about where we are going. So that's stuff that we might not have focused on just yet, but we do plan on focusing on in the future. So that's where you'll see a lot of the new Future Ready strategic plan. And then the teal color is going to be just some instructional spotlight. We wanted to take the opportunity in front of all of you to just talk about some of the spotlights that groups of people in our district deserve to have known about them in a public space, in a public sphere. So let's just chat a little bit about where we have been. In 2018, the current as in a few months ago, current, strategic plan was adopted. And then in 2022, we, as a secondary team and with secondary principals, created a professional learning 3 to 5 year plan. We called it then. We didn't realize that 3 to 5 years was going to be as short as it was, and so it really evolved into a 2-year plan, but it's a great launch pad for what's coming with the Future Ready strategic plan. In 2023 and 2024, as you know, the strategic plan for student success outcomes was developed, and then we finalized some interim goals here just a few board meetings ago. And so what we have to do now is figure out how to meld and merge those two things so that people don't feel like what we've been focusing on for the last couple of years isn't important moving forward. It is important moving forward and allows us to really focus our efforts on, hey, we've been doing well over here. How do we pull that into some of the new pieces that are part of the strategic plan? You guys have actually seen this inverted triangle before in other presentations, but we do have some schools with goals that they've had that are outside of the field of vision of this triangle. And as one of the principals said a couple times at PLA ago when we were talking about this and what the new Future Ready strategic plan might mean for our actual schools, he said, so we are going to need to do some weeding of the garden, and if there are goals that they have outside of the framework of this triangle, we're going to need to go ahead and weed those, not because they're not important, but you can only focus on so many things at a time. There's even research about the more goals you have, the less of them you accomplish. So we want to keep it super, super narrow so that we can truly hit the student success outcomes that all of you outlined in the Future Ready strategic plan. All right, so let's talk about what was in that secondary professional learning plan that was developed in the 21-22 school year. It had 3 goals, depending on if you were middle school or high school. So the first one, you see foundations of algebra percentage. So the first goal for our secondary professional learning plan was to decrease our percentage of 8th graders going into 9th grade that qualified to take the foundations of algebra class. And we'll talk more about what that means in just in the next slide. The second goal was to increase ELA grade level proficiency on the ELA state assessment. And that was true for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then 10th grade is the high school grade that they take that in. So that was true across all 4 of those levels. We don't actually have data for this year about that yet because the testing window just closed. So I actually only have updated data about the foundations of algebra percentage, but I'll show you that. And then the last goal was to increase the percent of students that had a graduation plus, which has really, the state has turned into what we are calling post-secondary assets now. So we're flipping some of that verbiage, that graduation plus language is old, and to increase our graduation rate. Of course, we don't have our graduation rate data from the class of 2024. We won't have that until middle of next year. But that has been the goal for the professional learning plan, what we've wanted schools to be focused on. We need to have more kids ready. We know Algebra 1 is a barrier, so we need less kids to qualify to take foundations of algebra their freshman year. And we want ELA grade level proficiency to go up, and we want more kids to graduate with something extra and more kids to graduate in general for graduation rate. So that's what we did. So let's talk about foundations of algebra because that's the only one I have updated data for because it's going to be a minute before we get the rest. So foundations of algebra, you actually also have 2 handouts as well in case you're curious. One handout is foundations of algebra trend data. So that will show you the 2-year trends for each individual school if you are so inclined. Look at that. So that has data from the spring of 2022 all the way through this spring. And then the other handout you have is specific to the current 8th graders right now. So this one is 2-year trends, and this other one that you have is these current 8th graders that are getting ready to leave 8th grade and go to high school. And that's also by school. Thought you might be interested in it by school because what I have in front of you is just the district-wide data. So this data was first collected in the 21-22 school year. This data was not collected any time before that. So we can't even go further back in time because it was new data to be collected in the 21-22 school year. And how do you qualify for Foundations of Algebra is probably what you're wondering. So to qualify for Foundations of Algebra, a student has to be high risk on their FastBridge A-Math screener, and it's an and statement, not an or statement, and they have to be 2 or more grade levels behind on their iReady diagnostic. So they're high risk on their A-Math screener, and their iReady diagnostic says they're 2 or more grade levels behind in mathematics. That's enough of an indicator for us to say, whoa, they're probably not ready to take Algebra 1. And so these students are going to take a Foundations of Algebra course, which is kind of like a pre-algebra, if you will, to get them ready so that then the next class, math class they will take in high school is Algebra 1. We want less kids to qualify for Foundations of Algebra because that means more kids are ready to take Algebra 1 as freshmen. So that's where that relationship came from. And we wanted to make sure that middle school truly felt like they had something to hang their hat on and push on with this because we've heard from the middle school that they maybe didn't feel as part or as obviously a part of the previous strategic plan. And so this was also a good bridge in the strategic plan to, hey, we want to increase graduation rate middle school. You're part of this because you need to make sure we have kids that are ready to take Algebra 1 when they're freshmen. So in the spring of 2022, which would have been the class of 2026, so these kids are still in high school, 16.41% of all of our 8th graders in the spring of 22 qualified to take Foundations of Algebra the next year when they entered high school. And then the spring of 2023, that data jump is not good. It went the wrong direction in a big, big way. 21.69% of the class of 2027 qualified to take Foundations of Algebra their freshman year. The good news is they can take Foundations of Algebra and they're not super, super, super behind on their graduation requirements because Foundations of Algebra is still a math credit. But the bad news is we need you to be more prepared when you're entering high school. This spring, so our current 8th graders right now, I'm very happy to report that a lot of our intentional efforts focused around math and making sure kids are prepared for freshman year in Algebra 1. It's 15.85% of our current 8th graders qualify to take Foundations of Algebra. Are we happy that the number is 15.85? No, we still have a lot of work to go, but we are very happy that that 15.85 reversed that massive increase from last year and went even further and went down even a little bit more from the spring of 22. And just to call up some of the data on the individual sheets that you have in front of you, CMA of all of the middle schools has the lowest overall percentage of their students that qualify to take Foundations of Algebra. Coleman, Curtis, Jardine, Mayberry, and Truesdale all had double-digit percentage drops from last year to this year. Allison, CMA, Coleman, EIA, Mayberry, and Stuckey are all at less than 10% of their outgoing 8th graders are qualifying for Foundations of Algebra. And then we also wanted to call forward Robinson because Robinson is the only school on the list that decreased both from 22 to 23 and then decreased again from 23 to 24. So they're the only school that's decreased 2 years in a row.
Yes, let's go ahead. Go ahead, Melly.
So
Just wave your hand and I'll catch my peripheral vision will catch it. Do you mind if we interrupt just for a second?
very good, yeah. I mean, it just will help in terms of my absorbing all of it. So does it then directly correlate, that is reducing the number of students that are eligible or meet the criteria to actually take Algebra 1 by reducing the number? Let me give an example. So let's look at CMA, which they have one of the lowest numbers of students that actually qualify to take this, correct? To
Yes,
take
ma'am.
the foundations.
Yes, ma'am.
So that means that more students are theoretically ready for Algebra 1.
or geometry
or
algebra.
geometry, or
Yes.
whatever. So does it, and so therefore there is a direct correlation between not qualifying for this and being prepared for the next level of mathematics.
Yes, the creation of the Foundations of Algebra course was directly born from the significant failure rate of freshman students
That's
going
what I
into
wanted to
Algebra
hear.
1.
Mhm.
And we were like, we cannot just keep doing
Right.
the same thing. It's not working. And so this course was specifically created because we had enough data to say we've got a lot of kids that aren't ready,
Mhm.
and we're just throwing in them to Algebra 1, and we're kind of
And they're
throwing them to the
failing.
wolves
Mhm.
in a sense. And so what can we do to make sure that these kids are better prepared? And so we want kids to be prepared to take Algebra 1
Right.
when they are freshmen, but this gives them a stepping stone so that they aren't just thrown into Algebra 1 and then have a super high failure rate.
Right.
We want them to take Foundations of Algebra, get a taste of math success. Right? I was a math teacher. Half of my job was to give people confidence. Actually, more than half my job, right? Just to help people understand that they could do this and they could be successful in mathematics. And so that gives them a taste of success in math through the Foundations of Algebra course so that they can get into Algebra 1 and be successful.
And so I'm going here, this is where I'm getting to, is that we can actually substantiate that we have a higher percentage of students that are being successful in mathematics, be it geometry, be it Algebra 1, Algebra 2, whatever it is. They're actually succeeding at a higher percentage.
They are
Because-
earning their math credits at a higher rate
At
than
a
they
higher
would
rate.
have without. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else before we move to the red area, which is where we're going next?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't have any data for you on the other two again because it's not new enough. It's data that you've seen before. We don't need to bring data that you've seen before, but we will bring updated data once we have it. So now we're going to go into the where are we going. So these are things that we have not really been focusing on in the secondary sphere. It's not that they're not important. They are important, but we haven't been pouring our efforts into these items. But these are things that are going to be on the new Future Ready strategic plan. And so we are going to begin to pour efforts into this. And so this is just a little preview of what some of the data around some of the things that are in the new Future Ready strategic plan will look like and have looked like for the past couple of years. So first up is ACT data. If you didn't know, the state of Kansas does allow us to to provide an ACT test to every junior in the state for free. And so we provide that opportunity to our students on an ACT testing day in the spring. Usually it's in late February is what we choose. Last year is the first year that we offered that online. Previously, all of the kids took the old paper version of the ACT that all of us took. And this last year, we switched that to an online test. So last year, 72.3% of our juniors took advantage of that free test on that testing day and came to school when none of the other kids came to school so that they could take the ACT. This year, 72.5% took advantage of that opportunity. So slight increase. This is something that will be a post-secondary asset moving forward. And so we want to make sure that we leverage the highest percentage possible of students that actually come and take the test on that day. And like we talked about earlier with our certifications and with our scholarships, we don't want anyone to think they're in a certain box and shut the door on an opportunity they might have. So we would love for all students to take advantage of this test. In 22-23, 20.4% of our students earned a post-secondary asset on the ACT in that year, which means that they scored a 21 or higher. 21 is what on the composite score. 21 is what the ACT says you are ready for college without the need for remediation if you can score a 21 or higher. And this is not unique test taker data for that post-secondary asset. So that is any student who took an ACT in the 22-23 school year. 20.4% of those ACTs came back as greater than or equal to 21. The ACT data that we get from ACT is actually really, rough data that our research and analytics team has to do a lot of work with to find unique test takers. And so like if Timmy took the test 8 times because he was at a 27 and wanted to try to get it to a 28, all 8 times Timmy would count as a post-secondary asset. That's why when we brought you the Future Ready interim goals, we put that word unique test takers in that sentence, because then you're not conflating your data one way or the other with kids that are taking it multiple times. And so we wanted it to truly be unique kids, so you had a better picture of the district as a whole when it's unique students. Our average composite score was 15.9 in the 22-23 school year. And again, that's of every kid that took it, doesn't matter how many times you took it, and it wasn't just on that testing day. It was all of our kids that took the ACT in 22-23. In 23-24, we had less students earn a post-secondary asset. Keep in mind, there's a huge ACT testing day in April that we don't have the data back for yet. This is just data through our February testing day. But here's my favorite part. Our composite score as a district went up a whole entire point, which that's really hard to do, to raise your ACT composite score by a whole entire point. And so while less kids earned, or less percentage of test takers earned the asset, overall our composite score as a district was significantly higher this year than it was last year. That's ACT data. The next one, which people tend to be less familiar with because it's kind of a new on the scene assessment, is ACT work keys data. So ACT work keys is an assessment that measures how prepared you are to have the skills and abilities to enter the workforce. This has not been heavily marketed. A lot of kids and a lot of staff, to be totally honest, don't know what the work keys is for. It's new, it's different. We're gonna have to do some work around that so that kids understand it. We just started testing it systemically within the last few years, so this is also pretty new data. Last school year, 48.4% of our seniors took the ACT work keys data. We do this one in the fall, usually mid to late October. And this year, 50.4% of our seniors took the ACT work keys. That's definitely a number that we have to get higher. 1, this is a post-secondary asset. 2, now that we have some things we can say, this is what it's for, this is why it's valuable, and we can get that percentage up. Some really cool numbers in this though. So what does it mean to be a silver, a gold, or a platinum? There are other levels besides silver, gold, or platinum, but the reason we only put silver, gold, or platinum on there is because a silver, gold, or platinum will earn you a post-secondary asset in the future. Silver means that you have the necessary skills and abilities to do 65% of the jobs in the workforce. That you could leave high school tomorrow and you could do 65%. You have 65% of the skills and abilities. So 21.9% of our kids were silver last year and 24.1% of our kids were silver this year. Gold, it's a really big jump. You have the necessary skills and abilities for 90%. So when it's 65 is the silver level, 90% is the gold level. So 9% of our kids that tested last year were gold, and 11.3% of our kids that tested this year were gold. Platinum is greater than 99%. So you got them all. Last year, 4.5% of our kids that tested, and this year, 6.1% of our kids that tested. So when you add all those together, last year, 35.4% of our kids would have earned a post-secondary asset on the work keys, and this year, 41.5% of our students. If 41.5% of our students are gonna earn a post-secondary asset on this, then we want more than 50% of our students to take the test, right? Because we want 41.5% of the entire district, not 41.5% of 50% at the end of the day. Next is average daily attendance. Again, this is not something that we've been emphasizing. You have another handout with you. This is average daily attendance for all of the schools, if you are curious. And this is comparing 153 days of school last year with 153 days of school this year. So last year, that was April 30th was the 153rd day of school. This year was April 30th. Last year was April 27th was the 153rd day of school. So we're comparing exact number of days. This has, again, not been a point of emphasis systemically across the board, but you know that it's an interim goal in our new Future Ready strategic plan. And so we wanted to call forward on the screen all of the schools that have increased their average daily attendance rate from last year to this year. The ones that aren't on here have either stayed the same, because there are some that have stayed the same, or they've gone down. High school overall is 0.1% different. It's 0.1% lower, but we still have a few days of school to try to get that to be higher than what the end was last year. So we can make this push here at the end to try to get it higher. But right now, it is 0.1% lower than it was last year. So we put those 5 high schools on the screens, that's more than half, have increased their average daily attendance rate from 2022-23 to 23-24. And then the same thing with the middle schools, that's a whole lot of them. 13 of them have increased their average daily attendance rate. And then you will see middle school overall right now is 0.4% higher than it was last year. And we have that same amount of days left of school to make sure that that stays higher or even gets a little more than 0.4% higher in our average daily attendance rate. And then post-secondary assets preview. So we have some preliminary data about our current seniors. Please keep in mind, do these seniors have to have post-secondary assets? Nope, they don't. But they're earning them, should they have to have them, whether they know it or not. So if we can earn them and we're not trying to push kids super, super, super hard to earn them, imagine what we could do if we started putting intentional efforts towards, hey, you've got to have a post-secondary asset to graduate. Hey, did you take your ACT work keys? Because you can earn a post-secondary asset next week when you come take that test. We have a lot of things in front of us. So here's it's just a preview of things that we're currently tracking that we can tell you in the class of 2024, here's how many kids have this. So first one, Seal of Biliteracy. Seal of Biliteracy would earn you a post-secondary asset. We have 126 current seniors who earned a Seal of Biliteracy. Right. There's the 21 plus on the ACT. 434 of our current seniors going to graduate next week. Got a 21 or higher on their ACT. No. 614 of our current seniors going to graduate next week earned a silver or higher on their ACT work keys. 1,392 of our seniors that are going to graduate in the next week or two have earned at least one industry recognized credential. 282 scored a 3 or a 4 on the math cap when they were sophomores that would have earned them a post-secondary asset. 386 scored a 3 or 4 on their science cap, also from when they were sophomores, that would have earned them a post-secondary asset. And 393 of them scored a 3 or 4 on the ELA cap, also from when they were sophomores, that would have earned them a post-secondary asset. Is this the comprehensive list of post-secondary assets? No, it is not. We actually don't track all of the post-secondary assets right now. That's what we're working on, but these are easy things that we're tracking right now that we could bring forth and say, hey, we've got kids out here earning post-secondary assets, and we have told no senior on this planet, hey, you got to earn a post-secondary asset. So we have good foundational work for how to build this house in the future when we go forward with our class of 2028. We're going to shift to instructional spotlight now.
One
Question?
Hazel?
Yep, go for it.
Question.
Yes.
So all of these numbers that you gave us are really, really great. But my question is, how many graduating seniors do we have total?
Well, they still have 4 more days to make it, so I don't have an
So do you have
exact,
it doesn't have to be exact, just approximately?
I don't have a number
Oh, okay.
off the top of, like, they have 4 more days to pass their classes.
Okay. I
And
just
then we'll
wondered
see.
what the comparison was.
Typically, we graduate about 2,600 kids a year,
Okay.
just on an average. So we're not holding to that, but that would be to give you a general idea. Is
I'm
that
just
fair?
trying to compare
Yeah,
the
there's
numbers
generally
to-
3,000-ish kids in a class, if that helps you, right? A general safe number is there's about 3,000 kids, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way through the system. Yeah. Is that, I thought you were asking me like literally how many kids are graduating, and I was like, Hazel, that is impressive. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're just asking how many kids are in the class.
Well, I wanted to know because I wanted to see what the difference was in these numbers. Like, are these really great numbers, or they sound good? Are they really great numbers? That's what I was wondering.
Right. And that's a great question. And part of the reason we did them as numbers is because those are kids that are with us now, because there's sometimes we count the kid, but then they leave us, or they get to us and we don't know if they passed the cap 2 years ago or they didn't pass the cap 2 years ago. And that's part of what we're navigating with KSDE right now with these post-secondary assets is how do we share this information as kids move across the systems? Because right now we don't share this information as kids move across the systems, and we want to give a kid all the things that kid has earned, but right now we don't have a good way to share that from school district to school district to school district as our kids move in and out.
Thank you.
Yep. And I also want to bring forward, we do want the data to increase, which is why we're like, this is the data right now as foundational, and we expect these numbers to be higher and higher, and the percentages overall to be higher and higher as well. So we're going to move into instructional spotlight. I just wanted to put a histogram on the presentation is really while this is here. So histograms, if you are unfamiliar, these are bins, and then these tell you how many people are in those bins. So at the beginning of the year, we asked every secondary principal and AP to, at a minimum, complete 5 walkthroughs a week. And we talked about why that's important, about your presence mattering. Your presence matters to kids, your presence matters to teachers, your presence matters to parents, right? Because when a parent calls and said, well, in Susie's math class, and when you can say, I was actually in there yesterday, right? The conversation takes a whole different tone. And it's hard to make academic gains if we're not aware of what's happening instructionally in our classrooms. So we've got to understand what's going on instructionally in classroom to classroom. So we issued a little bit of a challenge to our principals and our assistant principals. And these buckets are how many walkthroughs they've actually done. So what this means is there's 4 principals who have done between 55 and 80 walkthroughs this year, right? So the red ones did not meet the target. They weren't even really close. So this is data for us as a secondary office so that we can work with those principals and say, hey, if we're going to push and we want academic outcomes, we've got to know what's going on instructionally in our schools. The teal were approaching the goal. They got close. The blue hit the goal or exceeded it. Notice we've got 2 that are way over here on this side that more than doubled the goal. And this is not like a formal walkthrough, like part of a teacher's evaluation. This is, I'm coming in and I'm giving you some feedback on what I see. This is not, I'm evaluating you. This is, I'm coming in and I'm giving you feedback on what I see. Sometimes that feedback is a sticky note saying, hey, you persevered today, I'm really proud of you, right? Sometimes that is, hey, I noticed that, because a teacher told, or someone observing me said this one time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would have never known that. Like how I stand was like cutting off like part of the corner of the room with my shoulder. I would have never known that had someone not told that to me. But then now I'm always cognizant of it because I'm like, okay, let me make sure I don't cut off part of the room with my shoulder by how I'm standing, just things like that. So our principals that are in blue, definitely happy about this. We've got some work to do because it's not 100% of the principals are in blue. So we've got some work. For our assistant principals, here's the chart. Their expectation was the same. No different than the principals in terms of number is you need to be out there, you need to be in classrooms. So our red didn't hit the goal, not really approaching it. Our blue, or our teal approaching, and our blue met the goal. And while all of this data isn't perfect, it's important to know what the data is. We had to set a baseline. I am happy to say in 22-23, through the same number of days of school, secondary principals and assistant principals did 4,065 walkthroughs. In 23-24, through the same number of days of school, secondary principals and assistant principals did 14,491 walkthroughs. So the goal of the challenge at least was met in the sense that we have a better understanding of what's going on instructionally and academically in our schools because we're spending our time in the place that matters most, classrooms. Because the magic of school does not happen in our offices. The magic of school happens in classrooms. So we've got to be there. And if you're ever having a bad day, you just go to classrooms. It's so much better. I do want to call forward some of our principals and assistant principals who are in the blue part of this data. So on the principal side, Travis Rogers, Justin Castle, Jake Henning, Connie Reddick, Stephanie Uppendell, Leroy Parks, Jake Johnston, David Self, Josh Wilbert, Joel Escarpita, Stephanie Smith, and Rachel Oliver all hit the goal, which is awesome. And then on the assistant principal side, Myron Fisher, Everardo Flores, Heidi Flores, and Claudio Flores, Amy Baldwin, Kevin Steiner, Chanel Aller, Melinda Matuku, Safia Welch, Emily Tanner, Jamie Wettig, Melissa Neal McFarthing, David Inez, Carrie Ornalis, Eric Johnston, Ramon Wiseman, Darren Ross, Stephen Parks, and Tanya Ringel all hit the goal. So I just want to bring their names forward. Their jobs are really hard. This is the most important part of their job, but their jobs are really hard, and they didn't let the whirlwind control them so much that they couldn't be in the most important part of the school, which is the classroom. So I just wanted to lift them up. Next, we just want to celebrate for a minute. So Heidi Dreiling, who is an ELA teacher at South High, was the National Read 180 Award winner. She's the first ever winner from the state of Kansas. And how did she get this award? This award is for her and her students. Her students showed so much growth in their literacy scores from the beginning of the year till now that that's what Heidi won the award for. So students that are in Read 180 are significantly behind on their literacy skills, and they showed substantial growth, the most growth out of all the Read 180 programs that are going on in the country, which is why Heidi won this award. So that's super, super cool. And I don't even have a slide for this because it's breaking news, but we have 2 schools that were just named Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase Schools, Chester Lewis and Gordon Parks Academy. And Chester Lewis is the first alternative school in the country to win a National Showcase School award. That's breaking, hot off the presses. I checked with them and they said I could tell you, but that is hot off the presses, don't even have a slide for it, news and information to celebrate. There's that. And then last but not least, you've heard about letters. You've heard a lot about letters, and you've heard a lot about our elementary friends going through letters. But that doesn't mean us on the secondary side can't learn something from letters. And so just a couple weeks ago, we said, hey, we're going to open up another letters cohort. Who wants to join? We only had space for 25 people. If you add the numbers on the screen, 18 of those 25 people were from secondary and said, hey, we want in, we want to learn, we want to get better. 5 of our principals said, hey, please add me to this cohort. I want to learn this. 2 of our assistant principals, 11 instructional coaches. That's just on the administrative side. We also have 2 teacher cohorts of secondary teachers that are choosing to go through letters and learn what letters is so that they can apply letters in the secondary classrooms. So just wanted to lift up that. It's a lot of work to go through letters. It's like taking a graduate class, and all of these people are committed to it because they know it will ultimately help them and help their students. So the next steps and questions are, the next step we have to build the bridge. We've got to build the bridge between, hey, we had this plan, right? And now we have this new plan, and how do we understand that those 2 plans can coexist and go together, and that we can build off of the foundation of the data that we have to make sure that we continue to improve academic outcomes for students.
Thank you. Questions? Knock?
I will.
I have a lot of questions, so we're going to try to do a rapid fire on this. So in terms of the foundations of algebra data, what were some of the factors responsible for that decrease from spring of 22 to spring of 23?
So a significant part of it, one, I believe, is presence, being in classrooms, knowing what's going on. Two is our teachers have done a lot of work around iExcel and a new, I think it's actually coming maybe later tonight, it's in the consent agenda, a new intervention related to mathematics to help. And our instructional coaches have done a ton of work with our math team members on what does it mean to run an intervention, and that doesn't mean sit on a computer all day, all the time. That might be a component of it, but that's not what we all do all day, all the time. So how do we differentiate instruction in an intervention classroom? How do we provide small group instruction? But the biggest key of all has been a focus on tier 1 instruction. Your best intervention support, your best tier 2 and tier 3 support is strong tier 1. Because if you're not getting the appropriate level of tier 1, you're always going to have a gap because you're never getting to the right level of tier 1. And so our teachers doing work around planning to the actual level of the standard and making sure that students know what that level is, I believe has been the most significant contributing factor to that drop.
And then the attendance data, will these be public? Or
Certainly can be, and it will be as part of our dashboard, right, for the new Future Ready strategic plan. Yep.
and then just how long does a classroom observation have to be for it to be classified as an observation?
So it depends on what type. If it's a walkthrough, 5 to 7 minutes.
And then, no, Hazel asked a really great question about the percentages. I think I would love to see what the percentages are for the post-secondary asset previews. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Knock. Melody?
Thank you. First of all, this has been extremely informative. You started out with the inverted diagram, and you stated that we're going to have to do some weeding. What does that weeding look like?
Yeah, so it's just as schools create their building improvement plans, their school improvement plans, it's making sure that the goals that they are focusing on are within the goals that we want to accomplish in the Future Ready strategic plan. It's not that other goals aren't important,
Sure.
but when you start adding this goal and this goal and this goal outside of these goals, it just becomes too much to manage and you can't focus on 6 things. And so the weeding is, hey, you've had this goal over here for a few years. It's not a bad goal, but that goal is not in alignment with our strategic plan. Let's pour all of our effort into making sure that we're hitting these metrics and these outcomes for kids. And so we want to pull that out and make sure that what's in their school improvement plans is stuff that's in that funnel that filters down from our Future Ready strategic plan.
And leadership does that? Who actually assesses, looks at that and says, maybe we should do this a little,
Yeah.
I mean, we need to do this differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. So building leadership teams typically create their school improvement plans. And those school improvement plans are submitted to secondary office and elementary office on the elementary side. And all of the principals have principal coaches and principal supervisors who come in and review that plan. But really, we need to do the pre-work with the principal so that the principal steers that conversation. So when it starts going astray in the creation, hey guys, that's not in that funnel. Let's take that one off the table. So
Okay.
we've got to do the pre-work so the principal is prepared to have that conversation with the building leadership teams. But on the off chance that something does make it through, we've got the review on the backside.
Got it. Okay, and then on page 3, I know you said that we just closed for the ELA grade level proficiency data. When is that expected that we'll actually be able to see that?
June-ish. Usually we get it pretty fast.
Okay.
But I also know, I don't want to, Gil, you can throw something at me. We were hoping next fall to bring you, Amanda Sharshall and I, to bring you lots of data around goal number 1 in the strategic plan that includes all of that state assessment data for all of the various,
Okay.
for the various grade levels, particularly the ones called out in the interim goals.
And I would just throw out, we're currently working on next year's calendar, and it's, I don't know, 2/3 complete maybe, or maybe about half. But we plan to have kind of the entire year scoped out for when you will get updates on all
Okay.
of this stuff. So,
Excellent,
yeah.
excellent. Last, and this may not be the time or the place, but might a board member be able to take this letters course? I just am interested.
It was,
It's just my thing.
super selfishly, it was one of the most life-changing, like, learning experiences I've
Mhm.
had. Granted, I have small children, so it's also very helpful from our small children, so I can
Mhm.
help figure out, like, oh, Riley, you don't know your speech, you don't know your letter sounds. We're gonna have to work on this.
Poor
But
Riley.
I will.
Poor Riley.
This is
right.
true, yeah.
But she's in speech right now and crushing it, so I'm very
I know.
happy for her. But I will ask Sharshul. Sharshul is like the letters czar
Okay.
of all the things, and so I will check with her to see if that is an opportunity. A lot of it's self-paced. You do
Okay.
have some in-person components,
Mhm.
but you do the readings and the tests and the activities and all of that online separately. So I will check with Sharshul. I don't know why it wouldn't be possible. I don't know if we have seats in this current upcoming cohort, but we can reserve seats if people are interested in it. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melody. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Lauren.
I did want to throw out one
Yes,
last
go ahead,
thing,
Kelly.
and this is just kind of a lifted up. AMath, iReady, Read 180. These are things that over the last few months you guys take votes on, and they cost money. And so I hope we're tying it together here a little bit on kind of the roles that these things play and why they're valuable. Some are intervention pieces, some are screeners, some are diagnostic pieces, but they all are critical in kind of the bigger picture, and they do fit in. So anyway, just wanted to share that. Great job, Lauren. Thank you.
thank you, and you're done with me for the evening, so you made it through.
And I think the point should probably be repeated about the post-secondary asset. And this was numbers based off the fact that it's not even, we don't even do post-secondary assets yet for this graduating class. So these are numbers without pushing a strategic plan or the actual post-secondary asset requirements needed for graduation. So you'll see, this is numbers without pushing it, and they just happen to already have met him. Okay.
Good point.
Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, executive session.
Diane?
Diane,
Oh,
maybe he said 15 or 20.
here, you can read it from here.
That's first. Where is it? I move that we adopt, no, that's not. I move that the Board of Education recess into an executive session regarding matters related to actions adversely or favorably affecting a person as a student. The open meeting will resume approximately at 7:30 in this room.
Moved by Diane, seconded by Kathy. We will have a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. We'll be back at 7:30. The Board of Education is back in session.
I wanted to change.
Back from executive session, no action needed or taken. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, consent.
And we'll do this slightly different tonight. We'll go from the inside, go and work our way to the outside. Diane, do you have any consent items to pull?
I have no consent items to pull.
I have no consent items to pull. Melody?
I think my questions will be answered in a presentation.
Okay. Melody, excuse me, Hazel?
I have nothing to pull.
Julie? Nothing to pull. Knock?
Nothing to pull.
Kathy? Nothing. Here, a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Moved by Kathy, seconded by Julie to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item under operations, 2024-25 Kansas Association of School Boards appointments and 2025 Legislative Committee.
Superintendent, you mind if I introduce this topic? It's yours. Okay. We have to appoint 2 members to our KASB committees, and Julie has agreed to be on the nominating committee, and Melody Miller has agreed to be on our legislative committee portion of that of KASB. And so I would move that we appoint those 2 members as our representative for those 2 particular committees.
A second?
Moved by Stan, seconded by Diane to appoint Julie Hedrick as our nomination committee representative and Melody Miller as our legislative committee representative. All those in favor, say, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, finance, budget report.
So I'll welcome Susan Willis to present tonight. We have a budget presentation prepared that should hopefully answer some questions as far as Phase 3 and what we've been working on so far over these past few months. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. So Susan, take it away.
Superintendent, could you just recap what Phase 1 and 2 were?
Yeah, that'd be great. Going to steal some of Susan's thunder
Oh,
if
I'm
I do
sorry.
that. No, that's all right. No. Phase 1, if you'll remember back to January, we had talked about some ESSER reductions, some internal positions that we had decided to eliminate. Phase 2 then was kind of the big chunk of the school closures, the 6 schools that you voted to close in March. And then Phase 3 was the plan of use of some year-end cash along with some additional FTE cuts. So through attrition, not staff cuts. So I'll let Susan go through the numbers, and then I'll kind of recap at the end. So
Thank you. Go ahead, Susan.
Good evening, President Reeser, Superintendent Bielefeld, Vice President Albert, and members of the board. Well, my presentation just got cut a little bit, so we're going to be screaming right through this. But I will take you back to some of our early work as we started to meet in January. And if you recall, we presented information to the board about our anticipated revenues. So this was the anticipated funds coming to the district. We talked primarily about the general fund and the local option budget, which those 2 funds are based on the number of students, so our FTE enrollment. And we look at the higher of the first or the second year and look back. And that's how it was in the formula at the time. And so we were anticipating revenues in the amount of about $576 million. Then we gave the board our anticipated starting point for expenditures. And that included the wage package negotiated last year, so our anticipated base increase, step, tracks, longevity, movement. And then we took all of the current ESSER positions and moved those into the budget. And that was our starting point for fiscal year 25 budget planning. And the difference between the anticipated revenues and the anticipated expenditures was a $42 million difference. And that was the variance we started with, where we had to start to look at our expenditures, knowing that we have very little control on the revenue side of our budget equation. So we shared with the board that we were going to have to make some informed decisions and choices in order to balance the budget. Obviously, a lot of those factors are data-driven, based on the amount of costs involved in positions and programs, but a lot of it was driven by feedback from parents, feedback from our school staff, and our non-attendant center staff, as far as the needs that were occurring in the classroom, primarily around mental health needs, additional para supports needed, maintaining jobs, maintaining reasonable class sizes and caseloads. Protecting wages was a very common theme we heard through those listening opportunities, and filling classroom vacancies, and finally keeping our student and family engagement initiatives in place. That feedback drove a lot of the early decisions that we've made through the budgetary process up to this point. And this slide probably says I'm a child of the 80s without saying I'm a child of the 80s, but essentially, this was a slide I've used many times. As we've gone through this budgetary process, it is important to understand there are a tremendous number of wants and needs in this district. We are a large district, a high poverty district. We cannot meet every need out there. Lauren talked earlier about focusing. Same principle applies on the budget side. Focusing the budget on the strategic plan and what we want to accomplish, at least we'll meet those plan goals, but we can't meet every single need out there. There just are not enough resources to go around to all the wants and needs. A lot of great ideas, a lot of programs that benefit students, but we have to provide that focus in the budget as well as in our academic pursuits. So we started the work earlier this spring with that $42 million budgetary deficit. Phase one, as we talked about, that total was estimated at $9 million. We believe that's still a solid number for savings in phase one. Phase two, the 6 schools closing, we've shared that would be about a $16.2 million labor savings, leaving for phase three, $16.8 million of additional work that needed to be done. I will say, as we go to the next slide, a few things have changed on the revenue side of our equation, so we wanted to cover that with the board tonight. That original budgetary deficit was $42 million. We do have an additional loss of funding for the mental health pilot. It's not a pilot for us anymore, although I think it's still not necessarily in the formula. But the Mental Health Initiative program, and we receive funding from the state to pay for mental health liaisons. The state was paying 75% and we were paying 25%. They are changing that formula to a 65-35. So we will have to pick up an additional 10% of mental health liaisons in the budget for next year. That cost to us is $225,000. That was unanticipated, so we will need to fund those. And since they are behavior related, we are not going to consider a cut at this point. The other change from a revenue standpoint was the loss of the 2-year look back. It had been proposed early in the session that we move from the 1 or 2 year look back to current year and 1 year look back. And the legislature actually gave us 1 year to use the average of the 1 and 2 year look back periods as a bridge to get to current and 1 year. So we will lose in 25-26 the 2 year look back in full. For 24-25, we get to average 1 and 2, which is good because otherwise the additional loss would have been closer to $2 million for us. So it's still a loss of almost $700,000, but better than the alternative. On the positive side of the revenue equation, we believe we are going to receive almost $10 million of additional special education funding. 9.7 is the current estimate that, based on some early worksheets we've seen from the state. That special ed funding is specifically targeted to reduce transfers from the general fund and the local option budget. It is not to spend additional dollars for special education. We're already meeting special education needs from a budgetary perspective. This is to reduce transfers, and that's exactly what we're going to use it to do. In that bill, there is some mandatory transfers from the local option budget, but we're already transferring above and beyond that anyway, so we won't have any concerns there. So that does bring us to an updated budget deficit before the cuts of just shy of $33 million. So that's a significant improvement over our previous position. So when we take back that phased work compared to our new budget deficit number, phase one cuts of $9 million, phase two of $16.2 million, we have made in phase three FTE cuts to date of a little bit over $5 million. The flip side of that is we've had to add some positions back in, specifically surrounding behavior positions and special ed. We expected a little bit more spread from school closures through more schools, and that's not exactly what happened. So we have a little bit more concentration. We've had to put a few more paras back into place. So we have to back out from the cut numbers about $4 million of positions that we cut in 1, 2, and 3 back into the budget. So all of that activity, which is still kind of in flux, we are now at a budget deficit of about $6.6 million. So we've made tremendous gains from January to now and to balance this budget with really only about just shy of $7 million left to move. That $5 million in phase 3 as far as FTE reductions, 18 of those positions were elementary vacancies. 27 were secondary vacancies, and 16 were AMAC Service Center, IST building, and the ISC building for vacancies. Again, we've not impacted any person through this process. These cuts have all been made through attrition. So someone has left a position and we have chosen not to fill it. The elementary and secondary, primarily those cuts are being made where class sizes allow those to happen. The AMAC, SSC, IST, and ISC vacancies, those are moving a little slower because there's not as many options for those people to move into. So some of that turnover, those positions have had to be filled. We've been focusing on FTE primarily because as we look at staffing levels from 2017 through 2023-24, compared to the student decline, we are slightly out of balance as far as rate of decline. Now, from 17-18, that's the first year money started coming back into the school system. So naturally, we were adding positions as money came back. We had cut 4 years. So that increase in staff compared to somewhat flat student enrollment makes sense. And then in the 18-19 to 19-20 was a project where we took some paras that had been temporary, so they didn't have an FTE assigned to them, and we assigned an FTE to them. So that fairly large increase from 18-19 to 19-20 was that para project. But you can see in 19-20, when we had that large decline in enrollment, we had a much less steep decline in staff. And that was purposeful, if you recall, at the time, because we had a lot of staff absenteeism, sickness. That was very purposeful. Then we have the bump back up through ESSER positions, right? So you can see we have some corrections that need to be made from an FTE perspective in relation to the enrollment decline. That's why we've been focusing on FTE decreases and not programmatic type of cuts. As we shared in January, the phase 3 plan involved FTE reductions, program changes, and use of cash balances. For the last month and a half, we've been focusing on FTE. We have a little bit of work that we still want to accomplish related to FTE. Again, all attrition-based. We probably will not get into program changes. Right now, there's just a lot of change happening in the system. We're probably not going to address any program changes as we finish the school year. We need to let the dust settle a little bit on what we've done, kind of measure where we're at, and then as we go into 24-25, we'll do a little bit more of the program-related work. But use of cash is where we'll kind of finish out this budget cycle. So again, taking that updated budget deficit after the revenues we're receiving from the state for special ed, less what they're taking from the general fund, after the cuts, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we do anticipate about another $750,000 of just general reductions that are in the process of being made, so that our planned use of one-time money to balance the 25 budget is just shy of $6 million. And I'll tell you, I feel pretty good about that number because we were thinking we would have to be closer to 10 to 12 to finish the year. So the special ed money made a huge difference in this number. We also want to set aside some one-time funds for at-risk reductions. If you recall, we actually received $8 million more in at-risk because of some students that had not, students that were qualifying for Medicaid who were automatically directly certified for free lunch. That, some of that has changed now, kind of after the COVID qualification periods have ended. So as we go into next year's free meal application timeframe, some families who were directly certified before may not be directly certified now. And what we don't know is if those families will come back in and fill out that free and reduced lunch form. We hope they do, from if they need it, right? If they need the support services, they need they're qualifying for free meals, fill out the free and reduced meal application, then that takes care of not only meals, but it also adjusts fees for the elementary, middle, and high levels. So that is a great benefit for families who have a financial need. We encourage families to fill out those forms, but we don't know what that direct certification change will do for us. So we do want to use some of those dollars in reserve to potentially cover that need. We might not need to use it, but we're going to budget it to make sure it's available to us. And we'll kind of cover how that will work. So our upcoming actions as we finish out this school year, there will be no additional capture of school-based turnover for fiscal year 25 beyond what's already in process. And the elementary and secondary offices kind of know what their target numbers are. They know where we're heading. They are continuing to work with us and reviewing class sizes to make sure that we're right where we want to be in the kind of the mid-range of what we expect in that 22 to 26, 27 at kind of the high end for elementary, a little bit more than that for middle and high. But that's the goal there. We don't anticipate pushing them any more than that. We will, though, continue to look at attrition for the administrative offices through the end of 24 and really going into fiscal year 25. That will be ongoing work. Which is what this slide says as far as planning for that use of cash. Remember, when we use cash to balance the budget, that's a 1-year reprieve from making decisions. Again, when we've reduced the budget by over $30 million, or close to $30 million, that's a lot of change for the system. So using that $6 million to kind of say, okay, we've done enough. Let's spread this over a 2-year period, which is always what we intended as we were coming out of ESSER anyway. We knew we weren't going to want to try to do this all in one fell swoop. The fact that we may only have to use, around $6 million is very good news. But we will continue to monitor and work through the plan of how we're going to cover that $6 million going into 26. And that will be, again, more attrition and turnover at the administrative centers. We will continue to monitor class sizes based on enrollment declines, but we're really kind of staying away from schools as much as possible. We will focus on non-school reductions, FTE, consolidations of non-school departments, program evaluations. This is probably the time frame we'll focus more on the program offerings, with a goal of a $5 to $10 million spending reduction that gives us some cushion depending on what at-risk does. That's kind of the planning. We would not anticipate any comprehensive school closures for 25-26. That's not something we plan to bring to the board. As far as the use of one-time funds, the plan would be for any budgetary fallout to go into contingency reserve. We may put some into capital as well, because that, as we've talked about many, many times, capital has significant needs. So if we can put some into capital, we will. But we plan on putting it in contingency, and then we'll budget it as a transfer to the respective funds from using that one-time cash to balance those budgets so that the general fund is balanced and all the weighted funds are balanced using those one-time dollars. Then we make those reductions for next year. We should be balanced depending on what happens to us legislatively in the 25 session. Okay. So at that, I will go ahead and pause. If the superintendent has any comments before questions.
Yeah. First off, thank you, Susan. I hope that this was clear, and I will have a chance for questions. But I also I think it's important to reflect on where we're at and where we've come from over the basically 6 months of time These are big numbers. These are challenging numbers. And I think as we've gone around the nation, literally, to talk to other districts who have been in similar circumstances, we haven't found, I don't know if any is the right word, but many who have not done what we've done in finding this much money without laying off staff. At the beginning of the process, we said people over places, right? And we kind of got knocked around a little bit on this one because people, oh, that's not true. But I feel good knowing that we did this with investing in staff, with keeping the staff that we've had for the most part. And it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been without heartache with the school closures, but our people are our biggest asset. And so in doing this, I think it's important to know. So the recent Eagle article that said the Eagle wanted to know if USD 259 was keeping the promise it had made to 120 or 132 teachers. As of right now, as of last night, we were at 75% of placement for all staff. Teachers particularly is 83.2 or 83.3% are placed. And as we told you in the plan, May 31st is kind of the deadline. So we still have a little bit to go, but we're pretty happy with that number. We're pretty happy with the amount of staff who've found a home, who've decided to stick with us. And I think we continue to believe in that. We continue to believe that we're trying to do right by our people as best we can and make the best decisions we can with a pretty colossal number that we've had to tackle. And there's more work to be done. I know, Susan, we're not going to go into any detail about what next year looks like. But just know that the non-school conversations have already started, and we have plans and things in the works that will continue to come forward throughout the next school year as far as that goes. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that perspective that it's been a challenging semester. There's no doubt about that. But I do feel as though we have followed through on our commitment to our people and trying to do as best we can in a very challenging situation. So
Appreciate that. Melody? You said you were going to have a question. Well, since you said it earlier, I put you down first. Hazel, you're next.
Talking in a room. You started out with saying that the ESSER positions were, that this included the ESSER positions being pulled out. ESSER positions, but not the ones that were paras that were associated with some that were associated with special education. I just want to be clear on that.
So our starting point for that kind of that budgetary process planning was, let's work with what we know on the revenue side, and then let's take all of our current spending and plan to continue everything next year, as if nothing would change. So when you do that and you apply that wage package, then you had the revenues at about the $576 million, and then you had $617 million of total spending that we no longer have federal funding to support. So from that point, then we needed to say, we're going to have to reduce some of those expenditures that had either been ESSER funded, or we're going to have to reduce other expenditures in order to balance that budget.
But my question is just, are those ESSER-funded positions still in this budget?
The behavior positions are, so we specifically said we were not reducing behavior positions. We weren't reducing any of the child study team, other than those positions that had been impacted at closing buildings. That's slightly different. And then every para that was funded through ESSER for benefits and hours, who has not left their position or has not changed position, that has been maintained. So if we've had turnover, if we've had a para leave, we are hiring at the reduced FTE.
Thank you.
But the current paras who had benefits are not losing benefits, and they're not losing hours.
Understood. Thank you. I needed to make sure I was clear on that. The second question that I have, actually I have a couple of fund questions, but before I move to that, so on page 5, Phase 3 actions, reductions made to date. Will, I understand that we're doing things by attrition period. If we're not filling these positions that had vacancies, will we in the future be hearing about a additional workload? Or, there was a position that has not been filled in this area, and so therefore there's more work that's going to spread across. I'm just thinking ahead, and this is from a business perspective.
Sure. The school-based attrition, I think we have those needs fairly well covered based on what we know today. Now, today is very much different than what it's going to look like in August.
Sure.
And because, again, we can make a perfect plan, and then school starts, and the plan somewhat goes out the window, and we have to adjust as needs come up. So, and that's kind of been our promise to schools, that if we take an allocation based on what we know now, and then for some reason enrollment significantly changes at that location, we're going to be giving it back,
Okay.
right? Because if that class size starts getting into, okay, now we're 27, 28, 29, like, okay, that's enough when it's 2 sections of almost 30 to go, okay, we need another teacher.
Okay.
So that's the commitment is, we'll take it, but if we need it, we'll put it back.
Okay, I needed to hear that. And now, when you look at a couple of questions about the contingency fund, it's still at about 31 million and some change.
Yes.
And where's the 6 million, shy of $6 million exactly coming from?
So every budget cycle, right? So all of the funds there's a plan, there's a spending plan for every fund we have. Where we have this much money coming in, we have these expenditures planned. But if we can't hire a person in one of those positions, then there is some savings the district has for at least a period of time.
Sure.
Maybe it took us 3 months to fill a spot. So when you kind of accumulate that over all areas of the budget, there's typically going to be, at least a couple $1 million of some sort of budgetary fallout related to positions not being filled. You want that because you don't want the opposite problem, where all positions are filled, unexpected things happen, and you then are now, struggling to find dollars. But in a normal year, there's always going to be some fallout from the budget. This year, we think between the fact that and it's been a very kind of interesting situation, certainly school closures, I think everyone sort of paused and kind of waited to see what was happening. So some of our spending patterns were impacted by that kind of hold pattern until the decision was made. Plus, a lot of our schools had spent a lot of ESSER on supplies. So they've not been spending their normal budget because they have those supplies from ESSER. So we may end up seeing some of that go into next year's budget that would normally be occurring like right now. So we think we're going to have, again, some one-time fallout that we can use for this purpose. We don't believe we're going to have to decrease that $31 million contingency. We think we'll be able to put some money in and then budget it back out without touching the 31.
I heard you say that, so now it makes sense to me. Very good. So we're really, we want it to be a flush. We don't, a wash.
We are very comfortable as, well, I shouldn't say very, that's an exaggeration. I'm going to say I'm very. We are somewhat comfortable with a $31 million contingency reserved based on the size of our budget, right? I mean, that's about a state aid payment. That's if you want to kind of put just some reference to it, the state aid we get from KSD a month is about a $30 million revenue stream. So if they are delayed for any reason, right, whether it's, they're in budgetary, they're not, but if they would be, or if something would happen, they have a cyber attack and they can't make a payment. We've got the dollars in our savings to cover that shortfall.
Okay.
That is kind of how we judge that number to be kind of where we want to be. a lot more, and then it's like, okay, now we're exceeding either our policy or we're exceeding what we really need based on the fact that we have other revenue streams that can also come in and support. That's kind of the rationale for keeping that $31 million intact.
Understood. Lastly, once again, in the cash summary of all funds, I was looking at the unencumbered cash balance of a negative ending today, I think, or ending whenever. Let me find it. Unencumbered cash balance as of 3/31/2024. It looks like a negative, 16,029,500. And I know that's fluid. But can you explain
Sure.
that?
That's in the federal funds. That's
Yes.
$16 million. And the way federal funds work is that you spend the dollars and then you have to apply to the state to get reimbursed for those dollars because the federal government flows its payments through the state and we get those funds from the state to reimburse us for expenditures. So anytime during the course of the year, month over month, you look at the federal fund balance, it's going to be either very, very small or negative
Yeah.
because someone owes us money for dollars we're spending on, typically it's Title I, but these last few years, it's been kind of really blown up through ESSER. So as again, when you have $270 million to spend that you haven't had to spend before, you figure divided by 3, that's $90 million a year, and it didn't quite work out evenly, but just using that as kind of your guideline, divided by 12, and you can see how much negative we would have month over month that the federal government would owe us in reimbursing us for spend. So, and if you look, that $16 million, if you look back a few months ago, it was higher.
It was-
And if you look back at the end of
Yeah.
last year, it was like almost $44 million in the red. So you can see as we're coming towards the end of our ESSER funding, that number gets smaller and smaller, and pretty soon it's going to go back to kind of what we consider to be normal
Right.
negative balances of anywhere between, $750,000 and $3 million. On title.
Great,
funding.
and that went with, would we expend our ESSER dollars?
Yes.
So I'll be able to track that and
Yes,
see
you'll
that.
you'll see it.
This is a kudos. In every department, the appendices that you do, and this is once again every department, they're very helpful. They're very informative. It cuts down on the questions I'm going to ask, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Just housekeeping, I've got Hazel, myself, Diane. Is there anyone that wants to be after Diane? And then Julie. And then, obviously, we won't rush this, so if anybody thinks of a second round or wants to add on to that, but right now I've got Hazel, Stan, Diane, and Julie. And then we'll ask again after that. So Hazel, go ahead.
Yes, I am asking about something that kind of rung a bell on me. On number 6, page 3, number 6, you said that we had $16.2 million in phase 2 of savings, and you called it labor savings.
I did.
So my question is, what is the difference? Where do the building savings come
Right.
in with that?
Right.
In relation to that?
So, and we wanted to be conservative, right, in our estimate of what we were really going to save year one in closed buildings. And what we really save year one are positions. So where we're able to move students to schools that had capacity to take students without adding staff, we were able to save a position. So we saved all the various grade levels. We saved a principal, maybe an AP, a librarian, but those kind of things we were able to capture and put back into the budget, right? We know there's going to be other savings. Utilities will not run as high. Supply savings. For example, we were able to repurpose 17 copiers at those closed buildings to buildings that needed copiers. So that's at about $10,000 a copier, we're saving some money. So, that's one example, and we'll have that in every kind of piece of equipment that we supply for schools. But to quantify it for savings when we're trying to, present a case to close schools without really knowing how much that's going to be, because we still own them. We still have to secure them. We still have to run some energy through them. We didn't want to put that in a savings number for budgetary balancing. We'll analyze that as we go through the year, and hopefully we'll be able to report back. Here was the actual number as we got through the first year.
Okay, and do we still have to pay insurance on those buildings?
We do.
Does it change?
I believe it will change based on the fact that it's not occupied.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify and follow up on Melody's question about vacancy. We will still have some vacancies that we feel that we still need to fill, correct?
It would be lovely if every move we've made would put a classroom teacher in every single classroom and we had special ed teachers to spare. That will not be the case. We will still have some vacancies. We will need long-term subs. All of that's true, but we should be improved over where we were.
Right, and that's the point I was trying to make. My other question is, when you put down upcoming actions, no additional captures of school-based turnover for fiscal year 25 beyond what is in the process, are you basically saying that when we match up our staff needs and our building capacity minus the 6 schools, we're now at a stop point of we're not going to put that in the budget and we may capture that more in the following years? So there may actually be some more savings. We're not going to see that exact number this budget that we will hopefully pass this summer.
Right. There's definitely a component of that where we think there's additional room to reduce some areas. We feel for the majority of our schools, they are going to have a lot to deal with just with either new students coming in or whatever whatever other changes that will be impacting their particular school. So there will be some we could touch, but we won't. And then, for example, in elementary, we've kind of looked at trying to recapture about 20. We think there's capacity for over 30, but we said let's shoot for 20. We're at 18, so we are still looking at the turnover that's occurring, because May is a
Right.
big month of kind of those people that come and retire. They will announce in May and before their deadline. So at each one of those, we look at to see, is it at a school that could lose an FTE and not have a significantly detrimental impact? If that doesn't happen, we'll stop at 18. If it happens that we have a position where it makes sense, we may capture 1 or 2 more in elementary. Similar situation in secondary.
I appreciate the conservative approach to that, and that's why I asked that question, is I wanted the public to understand that when we do things like this, we take a conservative approach toward it so that we can anticipate emergencies and blips in the budget that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yes.
So I'm glad to hear that we're still doing that, and we've been doing that for years.
And we've really, really, really tried to not have shuffling of staff between buildings. So if we are trying to wait for attrition to occur at a building that has the capacity to lose a teacher, as opposed to, a teacher retired over here, so we can take a teacher from this school and move them over there. Even though we have the ability to do that, we don't really want to do that unless the teacher wants to move. So that makes it trickier for us as we go through the reduction process, but it retains employees, kind of feeling of being part of a school family and not being negatively impacting with a lot of moves that are forced. So it is a trickier reduction process, but we think it works better for staff.
And I appreciate you taking that in consideration, and I think as the superintendent just said about trying to keep our word on when we originally had to discuss this starting in January, is that this is still in that lane of trying to keep in mind what our staff needs and what our students need, and then see if we can make it work with our budget. So I appreciate that. Diane?
Thank you for the presentation, Susan. I appreciate that. Can you speak to, you mentioned the wage package on slide 2. Can you speak more to that? We've had a lot of disruption in the system in the last semester, and I'd just like to bring a little bit of attention to that.
Sure. So last year, when we were negotiating for the 23-24 school year, we actually were able to get a 2-year agreement with our union partners. And so we had the wage package from the 23-24, and we are already complete for 24-25. That package is basically 5% to the base, step movement, track movement, longevity movement for staff. So it was a healthy package. Given our continued decline, it was aggressive, but it did accomplish our goal. And I think it would be a goal not only for the district as far as the administration, but certainly I think from from UTW, is that starting teacher salary is at $50,000 next year, or a little over $50,000. That was important from a recruitment standpoint. Not to mention the impact on the rest of the staff continuing to move up the pay scale. But that starting teacher salary and being able to be competitive with teacher hiring compared to other districts with our benefit package puts us pretty much at the top.
And I'm glad you mentioned the benefit package, because that's another piece of
I was
that.
gonna say.
But as of right now, from what I'm understanding, we're about, our projection for new teacher, usually we have about 400 new teachers that we bring in August. We're about half that or less for next year. So it worked, right? We've retained, I think the strategy has been fairly effective as far as retirements are pretty much average as far as a normal year, but the choice leaves are not nearly what they have been in the past. So I don't know if you want to throw out anything. You probably know those numbers better than I do, but
That's been accurate to date. Is that we've really seen a slower trend for employees choosing to voluntarily leave for other teaching type positions.
So I think our superintendent alluded to it earlier. We did get a little bit of flack for the tagline of people over places. And it was really emphasizing that we're keeping staff, we're not cutting staff, but let's also recognize that while we didn't cut staff, we also provided a fairly healthy wage increase as well.
Yes.
While we did this. So I did just want to highlight that
Yes.
during this budget process, that it's not just stagnant wages. We did provide a
Correct.
wage package increase.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
And kept the benefits. Julie?
My question is relative to page 7, slide 14, and it's the last underlined bullet on the page, no comprehensive.
Julie, can you turn your mic on?
Okay, I'll start again. Page 7, slide 14, plan for fiscal year 26, and maybe I need to just be happy with that this year is going good and not look at future things, but, I'm a planner. So it's really encouraging that we have this statement here that says no comprehensive school closures planned for 25-26. I'm really pleased to see that that is kind of being publicized as a commitment even this early on. I'm glad we're not going to have to to do that to families again. I just am thinking, every year insurance and utilities and stuff goes up. Our demographic studies show that enrollment is going to decline, so we're going to have another budgetary shortfall next year just based on those two factors. Plus, next year we're going to also want to do raises. So is there some magic wand here that I'm not aware of? Or do you just say, School Board Julie Hedrick, just shut your mouth and let's wait and figure that out next year?
Well, so I think there's a couple things on here that you know, one is the program evaluations that we'll continue to look at, which we didn't really touch this year much at all. Avid some, but we were able to keep Avid in the district. And then consolidations in non-school departments, those take time. And so that's a part of why, you know, the phases, the reason we did a phase 1 and a phase 2 and a phase 3 was because there was a timeliness to each of those things. And so we knew if we were gonna close schools, we had to meet a deadline of spring break in order to give families options and give teachers options and all the things we're doing right now. And knowing that, we also know that some of the non-school facilities and program or departments and areas would take a longer time. Some of those we can't just wait on attrition, right? Because they're specialized jobs and they do different things. And so we're going to go kind of department by department and create some plans for that. But so that'll be a piece of it. So there could be continued reductions there. But keep in mind, you know, base state aid, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we will see a CPI increase for base state aid next year, assuming, you know, assuming everything goes as planned too. So that'll be another piece of it. Do you want to throw anything in? Because I was going to mention
a couple
legislative
things.
session too.
Yes, we are still, because that average base increase is a kind of an average of CPI, we're still benefiting from high inflation in that kind of bigger than a 2% base aid increase number. That's going to go away, right, as inflation continues to drop. So I do think we're going to have to adjust expectations on what we are able to do from a wage package perspective based on those base aid numbers as that continues to kind of go back to what would be considered normal inflationary pressures and inflation impact on the base state aid number. Yes, our hope is that we continue to, if we're in decline, we continue to hedge that with some of the new programming. So while we may be losing here, we're gaining maybe in other places. So even if we're still at a net loss, we're hedging some of that. I said planned, and I specifically used the word because understand we actually had a fairly light impact legislative session. In fact, we got $9.7 million of special ed. That isn't a guarantee in 25 or 26, and we know 27 is a new formula coming our way. So there are still things that can happen beyond facility master planning or any of that work that could impact anything we do on these lists for the future. So no, I wish I had the crystal ball, but what we're telling you is here's what we know, here's what we're planning, and at this point, that is through anything that's within our control, that's not on our list for 25, 26.
And you know this because you've been on the board a while, but notice the challenge of, you know, it's May 6th. These bills aren't signed yet even, right? We're kind of planning on them, but this isn't even official. So when these decisions get made in Topeka that are this impactful to us, and then next year, who knows? And then the next year, who knows, right? That's not a small asterisk, but a big asterisk when it comes to all the plans. But we anticipate, I think, these being signed, and these numbers are pretty solid. But you know, we'll update legislatively in 2 weeks when we know a little bit more.
Sure. And if I could summarize this triangle, we are past the emergency point of this budget, but we still have some tough decisions in the future.
Yeah.
That's if I could summarize.
That's a good summarization.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we really appreciate your time, Susan, and we look forward to another budget. I think people are starting to really get into this budget thing. For a while, it felt like I was the only one interested, but now everyone's interested. So good. Maybe school closings will do that. Unfortunately. All right, Joseph. Next item, please.
Next item under policy, first review, proposed update of district policy 6345.
This is mainly, Kelly, did you want to, it's mainly kind of administrative changes about wording and wordsmithing of our honor roll and honorable mention But is there anything you wanted to add before I ask the board if they have any concerns or questions?
No, this is a reflection of weighted GPA that we've put into place over the past few years you guys have been aware of.
Okay, are there any questions or concerns or additions that you'd like to change before it gets to a final reading or a second reading? Seeing none, we will go on to the next item, which is a second review of the proposed update of elementary school policy. Current policy 1450, which updated requirements for before school care, after school care, and all-day summer care building site directors. There were no adjustments and changes on first reading, but this is your chance to make any recommendations at this time. If not, I move that we adopt the second reading of current policy 1450.
I'll second.
Moved by Stan and seconded by Diane to take the recommended action. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Patrick, next item, please. Joseph. Did I say Patrick? I almost went the whole meeting without doing that.
Next item under reports, United Teachers of Wichita.
Welcome, Katie.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Superintendent Bielefeld, President Reeser, Vice President Albert, and distinguished Board of Education members. I'm honored to address you today as we kick off Teacher Appreciation Week. This week began with a heartfelt celebration at Franklin Elementary of one of our teachers, Foon Nguyen Mueller. She represents the dedication to excellence and characterizes Wichita Public Schools. Today was a joyous occasion marked by a generous $2,500 school check, or $2,500 check for school supplies from NEA, Lysol, PTA, and also this recognition of Governor Laura Kelly through the signed proclamation. So I just want to extend my gratitude to Superintendent Bielefeld, BOE members Julie Hedrick and Hazel Stabler, and everyone else who joined us in honoring Foon's hard work. I also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our amazing WPS educators during Teacher Appreciation Week. We see your dedication, and despite many challenges, you show up every single day and make a difference to our students. Your commitment does not go unnoticed, and we are deeply grateful for all that you do. UTW has been actively engaged in various initiatives this past month. We sponsored Wichita Public School students at the recent Pando Stars event, and it was wonderful to celebrate our students with BOE President Stan Reeser and BOE members Julie Hedrick and Kathy Bond. Additionally, we were thrilled to take part in Spring Fling, standing alongside the BOE Vice President Diane Albert and BOE member Julie Hedrick to welcome and support our new teachers. Our recent efforts also include completing the second year of the AFT Reading Opens the World grant by giving away another $10,000 worth of books to targeted schools with third grade students who need extra support in their reading. We also purchased Clifford Goes to Kindergarten books for every incoming kindergartner to receive in their Welcome to Kindergarten bag this summer. These initiatives are a testament to our commitment to uplift our educators and students alike. However, during our celebrations, it's crucial to address several concerns that have been raised by our teachers. The proposed return to a shared technology model in elementary schools has sparked questions about testing, support, and teacher training. Additionally, the reduction in planning time for our special education teachers at high schools is concerning because we all know that there's not enough planning time for any teacher, let alone our educators in a high-need area such as special education. We believe that reinstating the Special Education Task Force could provide valuable insights and solutions to address some of these challenges. Furthermore, as students in the middle school PBS programs transition back to their home schools, it's vital to ensure that the educators at these schools are adequately prepared and supported. Our educators need to be playing a pivotal role in these discussions. Planning has also started for Staff Report Week in August. And we want to remind you to provide our educators with time to complete their annual sign-off policies that we discussed last August. One way we can celebrate our educators during Teacher Appreciation Week is by giving them the time they need to complete their required tasks so they can go home to their families after a long day at work. As we celebrate our outstanding WPS educators during this week, let us also recognize that the true celebration comes when we provide our teachers with resources and support they need, and when we listen attentively to their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you mentioning that, and that one of the things we say many times up here at the bench is that every day in our classrooms there are miracles being produced, and we appreciate your advocacy for those teachers. Thank you very much. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, Service Employees International.
I do not see Esau. Next item, Joseph.
Next item, Superintendent's Report.
All right, thank you, Stan. I love any event where we have a big, giant check. So it was awesome this morning to be in Miss Wynn Mueller's room. And the coolest part was just her kids and her just gushing about the kids and just like how she wanted to take a picture with them. And I mean, that's what it's all about. So great way to start the week. And thanks for the invite, Katie and team. I talked a little bit about the legislative session already. We'll plan on at our next board meeting, which is a special meeting on May 20th, to give an update kind of on our legislative platform and where we were able to have some wins. But I also wanted to update the board on some foster care conversations that have been going on in the community. Ryan Beatty, who's chair of the county commission right now, and I have been talking, and he reached out and has a heart for foster kids. We have about anywhere from 600 to 800 kids in foster care in our district at any given time, and those students have particular needs that are unique to them, whether they are at the children's home or a familial placement or whatever it happens to be. So I've engaged the board and had Kathy and Julie and Melody, who all had agreed to kind of join in on the conversation. I don't know exactly what form that will take as far as the next steps go, but we have some passionate, incredible leaders in our district that help with foster care and do a lot to support our students. And I think by working together with DCF and the county, I think there's some opportunities to do really good by our kids. You hear me say it pretty much every meeting that we're here for every student, and these are our kids, and we need to support these kids just as much as we support everybody else. So for the rest of the board, we'll have ongoing updates as far as what we're doing there. We also have talked a little bit with city leadership. I've shared this with you guys about doing some sort of coordinated meeting with them, probably in June, that'll be coming up. And wanted to update everybody on an exciting initial conversation with WSU and WSU Tech about teacher pipeline. One of my CTE support staff when I was in the CTE office had always given me a reality check and said, we do all this work to feed all these talent pipelines all across the community. When are we going to feed ourselves? Right? When are we going to take care of teachers and take care of our pipeline as the third largest employer in Sedgwick County? So WSU Tech has recently created a para program that's an associate's degree. So what we'd like to do is create some sort of tailored apprenticeship model for Wichita that could start as early as a junior year of high school. 2 years of high school, 2 years of WSU Tech, 2 years of WSU, that we are able to train and pay and hire and get them through the program with hopefully little or no cost to the employee. So the goal is to start something by January of 25 with some current paras that we might have that could be interested in this sort of a pipeline. But I think we could really do some cool things here as a community to feed ourselves, right? To help capture. We have some great kids that want to be teachers, that are excited about being teachers, and if we could get them in a pipeline to get them into our system from day one, that would be beneficial. So just some kind of general updates on a few of those things. Staff appreciation, like I said, was an exciting start to the week, but we do love and appreciate all of our staff. Hopefully everybody can make it out to the zoo for our zoo day. Wednesday night we'll have longevity and retirement celebration at Botanica, so a lot of good stuff there. And then graduation season is upon us next Monday, so I know you all will take your robe to the dry cleaners and get it all ready to go so we can celebrate our seniors. So that's all I have. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you very much. Great report. Joseph, next item.
Next item, Board of Education reports.
Knock.
Let's definitely follow up on concerns brought up by UTW.
Okay. Hazel?
No, I have no report.
My only report is we had, is perfect timing with the budget report, as Diane and I sat in on the independent audit of our financial records, and it is, I'm very proud to announce that we passed with flying colors. The bottom line, what that really means is that our numbers that we share with the public, and we share a lot of numbers, and we went through a lot of independent audits with our ESSER funds, and they found no major mistakes. And the numbers that we present to the public can be trusted, and that goes a lot of credit to our staff and the hard work they do to cross all the T's and dot the I's. And I won't go through all my school visits because that would just take too much time, but I appreciate all the end-of-year stuff that I've been attending. It's just been a wonderful part. It's busy, but it's very wonderful. Diane?
No report.
Hey, Melody?
The only thing that I'd like to kind of heighten is the need for the Equity Committee. I believe we're going to be getting some information on that, Mr. President,
Yes, very soon.
because it dovetails directly into the planning that we're doing, the master planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Julie?
No report other than to just echo the fact that we appreciate our teachers. So appreciation time here. Thank you, teachers, and all of our staff in the district.
Thank you, Julie. Kathy?
Thank you. All of my colleagues have given me a great segue. I won't be long. Well, I'm out of here by 11. No, I'm joking. Okay. I would like to say something, if that's okay,
Yes,
Mr. President.
absolutely.
Okay. As we are quickly approaching the end of this school year with graduations beginning, last day parties, and students excited to have the summer off, I'd like to take this moment and share my appreciation to our district leadership and their team and their efforts and constant modifications this past school year. I'm sure there have been many sleepless nights, long working hours, and I'll bet a few tears. The teamwork that I have observed has been quite impressive, and I can trust that my colleagues would agree with me. I'd like to thank our parents for getting involved in the district's plans to increase quality education for their children. Parents, this may not have been an easy second half of the school year for you, but I'm optimistic that the results of the upcoming changes will far outweigh those initial oppositions. I'm excited for the future of USD 259 and those at the helm. I'd like to thank our students for their voices and their ingenuity. Our students show tremendous imagination, creativity, and inventiveness. With these talents, I'm grateful USD 259 will be able to offer opportunities for our students to build on these while looking forward to their future with positive assurance. And none of this could have happened without our teachers. As a substitute myself in nearby districts, I see the daily ins and outs our educators endure, and I see the joy on their students' faces when they arrive at school so early in the morning. Teachers, a huge thank you for all you do for these students. Your sacrifice, your passion, and your love of children demonstrate your zeal for education. These past few months may have been extremely difficult for some, with increased and renewed excitement for others, and perhaps confusion for some. Thank you all for who you are. I can share all of this with confidence because of the numerous events I attended in the month of April. The Good Apple Awards, Stealth at Exploration Place, Super SAC, Pando Star Awards, the KASB training that the board attended, the annual NAC Awards with our JROTC members, speaking to the fourth graders at Riverside Elementary, Hadley's Masquerade Dinner, and Riverside's Art Walk, and silent auction, and I spent $120 at that. It took a lot of people who love what they do to coordinate and execute the success of each event I attended. I want to say a heartfelt thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. That was great. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item under miscellaneous, new business.
Seeing no new business.
Stan.
Yes.
So, I don't know if it's my place to say this, but we will have the board workshop on May 16th at 9 a.m. about the facilities master plan, along with an executive session. So I think we usually announce those here. So anyway, I just want to make sure we captured that.
Would you repeat, go ahead
Sure.
and repeat those dates, because I know those did get changed a bit.
Yeah, so May 16th, this will be at AMAC in room 809. We will have we'll have a board workshop starting at 9 o'clock about the facilities master plan, guardrails, and then we'll also have some time for an executive session during that time. And then on May 20th, we've already announced our noon special meeting. That's kind of our normal second meeting in May. That morning at 9 a.m., we will have our needs assessment board workshop. That's kind of an annual thing. Usually we do that in July, but we're going to move it up this year because we did the needs assessment earlier. So 9 a.m. on the 16th for board workshop, 9 a.m. on the 20th for a board workshop. So
Okay, thank you.
we'll get the notice out to the media and everything, but I just want to make sure we announced them. So thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, Board of Education requests.
Are there any requests this month? Knock?
Not a formal request. I just look forward to seeing what the plan for the Diversity, Equity, and Accountability Committee is.
Oh, this, echoing what Melody said? Okay. Kathy, did you raise your hand? Okay. That's not the same thing? Okay. All right. Seeing no other Board of Education requests, Joseph, next item, please.
Next item, adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
I'll second that. Moved by Kathy, seconded by Stan to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your hand. We thank everyone who braved the weather tonight to help us conduct our business.